do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO video. Today is going to be a video all about the Necromancer. I'm going to be showing you all of the skills, all of the passives in their current state. Now bear in mind this is in the pre-PTS Elsweyr update at the moment. This is not actually live, so it may change before it gets on PTS. It probably will before we get it again, but this is how it was when we tested it at ZeniMax Online Studios. Here we go. Now we're going to start from the healing tree first of all. These are in no particular order. This is restoring tether first of all. This siphons the last remains of life from a corpse and heals you and your group for 12 seconds. Now the morph of this is braided tether. This is one of them. This will actually change so each ally between you and the corpse increases the healing done by 5% up to a maximum of 30. And adjacent tether will actually increase the healing done by up to 30% more the closer you are to the corpse. So the closer you are to the dead bodies, the better. Next up is Expunge. You basically remove 3 negative effects and you restore 3090 magicka or stamina over 5 seconds, whichever of the two is higher. One of the morphs is Expunge and Vivify, and this will actually give you more resources. So instead of 3090, you actually get an additional 1020 on top of it as well. The last morph of this is Expunge and Modify, and this will give you an additional 10% more resources back for each negative effect removed by the actual skill. The next is Life Amid Death, and what this does is actually heals you and your group, but also it consumes a corpse, and when it does so, you can heal you and your allies in area of effect for an extra amount of health as well, giving you an additional 5-second heal over time effect. Now, Renewing Undeath does the same, but this also removes up to 3 negative effects as well, as long as you consume an actual corpse. You got to make sure there's a body on the ground first. And Enduring Undeath, this one will actually do the same as the original cast, but for each additional corpse, you will add a further 5 seconds onto the durated heal over time. It's really, really handy for that long hot. Next up is Spirit Mender. Now this is your pet, your actual healing pet, which heals you over time, and it creates a corpse when it dies. So you can take advantage of that once it falls down or when you recast it. One more for that is Spirit Ward. I did show this in the previous video, and this actually allows you to use the Spirit Ward as mitigation. Basically, it will consume 10% of the damage that you take. It transfers it to it, so it's kind of like a mini guard for you. And the final morph for this is Intensive Mender. Now what this does is it lasts half the time, but gives you 3 times the strength of the heal. So it's a very, very powerful heal, but it's a shorter durated effect. Now, Rend of Flesh is action ability that applies minor defile to you for 4 seconds, but heals you or an ally in front of you with a burst heal. And this is kind of your trade-off. You sacrifice your own heal and receive to boost a heal if someone else in front of you. Now, this version of the morph, Resistant Flesh, does the same as before, but it also applies a resistance bonus to the target healed, equal to half of the strength of the heal they receive. So if you hit them with a 10k heal, they end up with 5k resistances across the board. Now this particular morph, Bereft Flesh, now this doesn't actually apply a resist bonus to your target, but instead consumes nearby corpses, and if you do consume a nearby corpse as well as healing the person in front, you will heal an additional target. So basically it's a frontal heal for one person, but if there's corpses around, it's more. The ultimate, this is a game-changing ultimate for the Necromancer. This could change content as we know it. Basically, this costs 200 ultimate. It has a 28-meter range with a 12-meter radius, and this brings back allies from the dead. This can resurrect 3 people at once. Now, like everything, this has 2 morphs. If you do have Renewing Animation, you will basically resurrect 3 people, and you'll restore 5k magicka and stamina for each ally you resurrect. So they get up, and they've got resources as well. Very, very nice indeed. And the other morph, Animate Blast Bones, has a very different effect. When you resurrect 3 allies, you consume up to 3 other corpses in the area and summon Blast Bones for each corpse consumed. So we're going to get to the DPS skills in a moment, but Blast Bones is a skeleton that runs into the target and explodes. It's really, really strong, and you actually get 3 of them for resurrecting people. It's insane. Okay, now onto passives. While you have a negative effect on you, you will heal more. You will actually have 8% increased healing done. While you have a Living Death ability slotted, your critical strike chance with all healing abilities is increased by up to 20% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. So very, very strong passive. When you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate, and this can happen once every 16 seconds. Very, very high ulti gain, but obviously a long cooldown. And finally, when you have a Necromancer summon active, your magicka and stamina recovery is increased by 300. So any pets that you have up at the moment or any summon abilities will give you that recovery. Now we're going to go into the damage skill lines. Flaming Skull or Flame Skull, and it basically fires a skull into the air that does fire damage and explodes on the target, and every third cast ability increases the damage by 20%. Venom Skull, this is the stamina variation of the previous skill. This does fire a skull from miles and miles away, or you can use it at close range, it's up to you, and every third ability will be 20% increase in terms of damage, but while slotted, casting any Necromancer ability while you're in combat will count towards the third cast. You don't have to use this 3 times. You can use other abilities and they'll actually stack up to the third hit. The morph of it is Ricochet Skull, and this does flame damage like the initial one, and it does still hit harder for the third ability or the third cast of it, but the third cast doesn't just increase the damage, it also bounces up to 2 times across nearby enemies, so it will hit one target, then the next, then the next. Now, Boneyard is an area of effect damage over time ground-based ice effect, and it consumes a corpse on cast, so just be aware of that. It does actually consume a corpse when you use it. This particular morph does extra damage, 20% more damage, in fact, if it consumes a corpse when it's activated, and your allies for standing it can do an area of effect synergy, which will do damage, and it will heal for the damage done. Not only that, this synergy you can take yourself. Now, this morph of it actually applies a debuff. This does damage in area of effect, just like the last morph did, but also this will apply major breach and major fracture to enemies within the area of effect. So you have an area of effect resistance debuff right there. Now, Blast Bones, this is incredibly fun. You fire a skeleton, he literally just summons out, you tell him where to go, he chases a target and explodes and damages enemies nearby, and it causes a corpse on death. Now, Blighted Blaststones is the stamina morph of it. It actually does disease damage and applies Major Defile as well, reducing the healing received of the target, and again creates a corpse on death. This is massive damage. It hits very, very hard. You can do it from range or you can do it close up. Whatever way, the skeleton will chase after its target and explode. And the magical morph of this is a Flaming Skeleton. Now, this will actually hit the target just like before. It will do area of effect as well. But every second the skeleton spends chasing its targets increases the damage of the explosion by 10% up to a maximum of 70. So, the further away the target, or the more they have to chase, if people start running away from you, the more damage it will do. Skeletal Mage is your main damage dealing pet. Now, this will spawn for 16 seconds and hit the closest enemy, doing shock damage every 2 seconds, and it creates a corpse on death. Now, Skeletal Archer is, of course, the stamina variant. It does the same thing. It's up for 16 seconds. It does damage to the closest enemy every 2 seconds, but in the form of physical damage instead of shock. And each time the Archer deals damage, its next attack will do 10% more damage than the previous. So if this stays up for its full duration, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And this also drops a corpse when it dies. The Exploding Mage, this is the same as the original version of it, but instead of just doing damage over time for 16 seconds, this will actually, if it lasts its full duration, explode, doing shock damage to area of effect enemies. Anyone close by will take damage from this. And again, it creates a corpse when it dies. Now, Shocking Siphon will drain the last spark of life from a corpse. Basically, it needs a corpse to work, and it will deal 12,144 shock damage over 12 seconds. Now, that'll be much, much higher, of course, if you're spec for magicka, but this character's spec for stamina, so that looks less than it would be, but it's really, really high if you're spec for it. And all enemies between you and the corpse will take damage. It was in the previous video. It's like a beam from the ground, and anyone caught in it will take damage. Now, Detonating Siphon is the stamina equivalent of it, and it does physical damage over 12 seconds, which really, really hurts. Anyone caught in between it or on it will take serious damage, and then if it lasts its full duration, it will actually explode and do physical damage in area of effect. Now, this does require a corpse to work, so you need a body on the ground. Of course, the magical morph of it is called Mystic Siphon. Now, this will do the same as before with shock damage over 12 seconds, but this will also restore 2880 magicka over 12 seconds while siphoning the corpse. So while the corpse is there, while you're doing damage with this ability, you'll actually gain back resources. Now, the ultimate, this is absolutely insane. It lasts for 2 seconds, it costs 150 ultimate. It's a short durated ability, but it does frost damage 3 times in area of effect to the targets caught in it, and it will apply major vulnerability for each smash to the enemy hit for 3 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 30%. This is the first time this buff or debuff has been in the game ever. It's a massive, massive bonus, which is why it's such a short duration. But if you stack these up with multiple Necromancers, you're going to do a lot of damage. Now, the physical morph of this, he does disease damage, and each smash, the 3 smashes, get stronger and stronger and stronger. I've seen in excess of 100k per hit, and this is absolutely mental. And of course, each smash reapplies the major vulnerability to any enemy hit for 3 seconds. So if you hit a target over and over and over, the last one can then refresh the original hit, and you'll have major vulnerability for a slight longer duration. But it's really, really strong. And of course, if you want to take advantage of the magical variation of it, you can alter it for that, and it will do frost damage, and the final hit will stun all enemies for 3 seconds, and this also applies major vulnerability. So any morph will give you major vulnerability. They've just got different effects depending on how you spec. Now we're going to go into passives for this tree. We have increased critical strike chance against enemies under 25% health by 10% for each Gravelord ability slotted. So the more we have on our bar, the higher our crit chance goes up at execute. While having a Gravelord ability active, so just activate your pet and you're done, your spell and physical penetration is increased by 1500. Very, very nice. A penetration bonus flat as a passive on the class. Increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 10%. Yes, that does include bleeds and other skills like poison injection, rend and slashes, all those types of things, as well as your Necromancer skills. And finally, when an enemy dies within 4 seconds of being damaged by one of your Necromancer abilities, your next Bone Blast, Skeletal Mage, or Spirit Mender cast is free. So take advantage of Bone Blast if something dies near you and this bonus kicks in. Now we're finally going to go into the last tree, the tanking area. So here we go, looking at these in no particular order again. Bone Armor, this is your main resist bonus. This will give you 5280 physical and spell resistance. And this creates a corpse when the effect ends. Beckoning Armor is the same effect, same resistance bonus and all that good stuff, but if an enemy attacks you from range, you will pull it to you for free. It will just come straight to you. They're insta-chains, and this can happen once every 3 seconds. And then Beneficent Armor, while active, reduce the cost of Skeletal Bomber, Skeletal Mage, and Skeletal Mender by 12%. So if you are using those skills, they will be reduced. Now this is Bone Totem. This was also demonstrated in a previous video. You place a totem on the ground and it gives you minor protection to you and your allies for 8 seconds, which is a short duration, but it does give it nonetheless. And after 2 seconds, the totem instills fear in the enemies, holding them in place for 4 seconds. This is not a normal fear. This stuns them on the spot. They can't do a thing. Now Agony Totem will do the same effect with the minor protection for you and your group. And after 2 seconds, it will fear them and stun them on the spot. But your allies can take a synergy effect from this, which does magic damage over 5 seconds in area of effect, and applies minor vulnerability to them for the duration, increasing their damage taken by 8%. So you've got a minor vulnerability debuff there, and a synergy effect as well. The totem is very similar to the original, but instead of being cast where you are, you can actually fling this up to 28 meters away. So this is a ranged variant of the original version of the skill. Now this is an area of effect attack which will do magic damage to everyone hit. It will heal you for 25% of the health of your max health for the first enemy you do hit, but every other extra enemy that you hit with this will heal you for a further 3% of your max health. Now Ruinous Scythe has the same effect. You will still hit, you will still heal, it still works exactly the same. Up to 5 enemies will heal you for 3% of your max health like the last one, but of course 25% health of your max health will heal you for the first hit, but every enemy hit or damaged with this will actually have a 2000 health absorption for 2 seconds, meaning they negate their healing received. And Swift Scythe, this is a little different. This is magic again. This does the same as it did originally, but after dealing damage, you heal for an additional 10% of your max health over 5 seconds. So you get kind of a tick heal over time after you've done the initial hit. Now, Curing Cadaver, sap lingering life from your fresh corpses, healing you for X amount of health, and additionally 75% per additional corpse. So you'll get a heal and you'll do 75% more per corpse on top of it. So this is like your repentance almost. Now, Curative Boon, this is the one I was using in the video. This does the same effects. It gives you the heal plus 75 per corpse, but each corpse that you consume gives you 5 ultimate. absolutely insane ulti regen if there are many, many ads on the ground or lots of pets dead. And the other morph, Mortuary Mending, this will heal you as well, doing the same effect as it did before, but for each corpse you consume, you will grant yourself major protection for 1 second, reducing the damage you take by 30%. So in big ad pulls, if you want to be really, really tanky, you can use this to keep yourself up. Now, Grave Grasp, you summon 3 patches of skeletal claws from the ground, so it's in front of you. This was demonstrated in the video, and it will snare the enemies by 50% for 5 seconds and inflict minor maim on them for 5 seconds as well, reducing the damage that they can do. Clutch and Grasp is a little different. This will actually immobilize one enemy for 3.1 seconds. So this will do the same as it did before with the snare and the minor maim, but each patch that lands, and there should be 3 of them, this will immobilize 1 target in each area of effect. Is a little different. It does the same effect as before with the maim and everything, but it does empower your allies as well. Now it's in front of you, so it's quite hard to aim, but if you do hit your friends, you will give them empower for 5 seconds, increasing their light attacks by 40%. And if you hit your skeletal minions, your mages or anything like that, you will boost their effectiveness by 40% also. Now the ultimate, the big one, this turns you into a Bone Goliath, and this will give you 30,000 extra health on top of what you already have. As you saw in the video previously to this, I was an 18 or 20k stam necro, and with stacking effects, because it does stack on top of percentages and bonuses as well, I ended up with 58,000 health. You put this on top of a tank that is quite meaty already, you're going to hit 100k easy. Not to mention, of course, when you do light attacks, you restore health, and when you do fully charged heavy attacks, you restore even more health, so it's very hard to die while you're in this form. Morph number 1 is Pummeling Goliath. Now this is a little different. While transformed, your bash attacks hit multiple targets in front of you, and you deal 3,000 physical damage. So you hit for a decent amount of damage, and you bash in area of effect. Then finally, Ravenous Goliath. This is the one you saw in the video as well. While transformed, you deal 5% of your max health in damage to nearby enemies every second, and heal for that amount. So area of effect targets that are close to you constantly take damage every second, and you constantly heal, and it stacks with your light and heavy attack healing as well. Just note, you can't generate ultimate while you're in this form, but it does last for 20 seconds, so you can start generating ultimate again after it has gone. Now finally on to passives. This will increase your healing received by 2% for each Tyrant ability slotted. This doesn't require any skills, you just need this passive. Increase your max health by 2k. Necromancer gets 2k extra health, what the hell? Whenever an enemy you are in combat with dies within 28 meters of you, you restore 100 magicka and stamina. This can happen once every 2 seconds, so really nice on your sustain. And last but not least, of course, you reduce the damage you take from damage over time abilities by 10% while you have a Bone Tyrant ability active. So your damage over time mitigation is up. Okay, so hopefully that is up to people's expectations, and Necromancer is absolutely mental. We did test it for a very long period of time. It was very, very cool, but just bear in mind, of course, that a lot of these skills may still change. They may not come through to live, but that's the current state in which we tested them in. They may come through different on PTS, they may not, but who knows. Anyway, that will give you a good guide as to what to expect. So, first of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribing, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support the channel outside of YouTube, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website xynodegaming.com. I do live stream every night from 10 PM UK time on Twitch, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. And of course, when this hits PTS, I'm going to be all over it. You're going to see a lot of stuff on Twitch. I'm going to be testing stuff out. We're going to be doing content and all that good stuff as well. Keep your eyes peeled for Necromancers, Dragons, and Elsweyr. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.